First of all, it's obviously a very confusing time. There is conflicting information out there, and sometimes the government guidance is difficult to follow. How are people with the various types of diabetes expect to interpret that to keep themselves as safe as possible?
So if you look at all the guidance that's come out from the Department of Health and Public Health England, there's a very clear position for people with diabetes. And it's with any type of diabetes, irrespective of your control, it is strongly advising everybody to follow social distancing. It's different from self-isolation. It's not completely locking yourself up in your house yet. But as things stand, there isn't enough data out there for us to say, is it relevant to the type of diabetes? Is it relevant to the degree of control? So to be absolutely safe for the time being, till further data emerges, the principle is very simple: practice social distancing for 12 weeks. The question then comes, well, what is social distancing? To be honest, it's try and be at home as much as feasible. Try and avoid going into public spaces. If you have to go out for a walk, then make sure it's either something essential, and if you do it, maintain the 2-meter distance, maintain all hygiene. In short, try and minimize your risk of picking this up as far as feasible. That's what social distancing is about.
And obviously, I'm not sure you'll have an answer for this, but it's a very new virus. We're still in the early stages of understanding how it works. I'm guessing there's no data then on how it affects people with diabetes, type 1, type 2, or other types?
No, I mean, all we have is data which is available from China and Italy, and it says that there is a higher risk of worse outcomes if people have diabetes and are of older age. But again, lot of the data still to come. We don't know the answer. Is it because of their age and natural comorbidities? Is it because of diabetes itself? We don't know. So as you appreciate, the safest option is to say, do you know what, till those data come out, let's protect everybody with diabetes as much as we can. And thereby comes the whole principle of social distancing.
And do you think that's enough steps to be taking the social distancing, or should we be trying to limit interaction even further?
Well, I think, there's been a ramp up of the process as people are going along. And I think as things stand, most of the advice being given is based on the scientific advice being received from the central team of the chief medical officer, etc. So I think we're all in an area where we are trying to do the best possible. We're also going to take into consideration about the broader population, what people follow. And there has been a gradual ramp up. So my advice to all this is, rather than getting in the nitty-gritty of what can and cannot have happened, I think we just need to follow what the advice is. And as shown yesterday, there's still a lot of people who are out there having their holidays, having their ice cream. These are not essential bits to do. So I think follow that, stick to what is being firmly said, and I think that's the way ahead at the moment.
And being inside the NHS, it must be a bit like a whirlwind for you right now. How is sort of day-to-day healthcare happening? Because, for example, I'm expected to see my diabetes specialist nurse in May. Don't know what's going to happen with that yet. How are appointments and things like that happening still throughout this pandemic?
Yeah, so very clear steer from the NHS England team on that. Firstly, if you have diabetes or got diabetes clinics, there are 2 particular clinics that we are suggesting should run. And that's because of the risks involved and the outcomes. So one is high-end foot clinics because of the risk of amputations if you leave them alone. And the other is antenatal clinics because of the risk to the mother and the baby. Bar that, most clinics are being asked to go virtual. For example, this morning I spent basically phoning people. Most of the consultation was about how you are, worries, reassuring people. And I think that's the present status of play. Will it have a knock-on effect on services? Possibly. Could it also change the way services run? Could we move towards a more virtual setup in lots of areas? Possibly. So at the moment, I think the advice is that stay away from hospitals as much as possible unless those 2 particular clinics are in play, because the team will be dedicated towards doing a lot of the frontline work, including looking after people who have diabetes and are still getting admitted with or without COVID-19. So that's the present state of play. So yes, a lot of whirlwind, as you say, but teams seem to be coping, teams seem to be stepping up, which is great to see.
That's good to hear. I mean, the healthcare staff is growing by the minute. Doctors are coming out of retirement and healthcare workers are coming out of retirement to join the front line. But what are the concerns that you've been hearing from people that you've been speaking to recently?
I think the majority of thing is the first question you ask is, what do I do if I have diabetes? I think there's a worry and anxiety around it, which is natural because all around us, we've got media and social media. It's 24/7 right now. And as you could appreciate, when we have messages, and I think that's the careful bit we need to be aware of, that when we say to people, this will happen, a lot of people will die. We need to be careful of the messaging. I also understand the pressures people are under. So a lot of the messages has been about the questions you've asked. So I've got diabetes. What should I do? Should I go to work? Should I not go to work? Should I stay at home? Should I self-isolate? Am I banned in my house? And what will happen to me? So, or a big thing was my child's got type 1 diabetes. What will happen? So I think most of it has been anxiety, and our role has to be mostly reassurance and say, look, we're here as the NHS. The majority of people will have this virus. The majority of people will come through this absolutely fine, and we are trying to protect the vulnerable in the situation as much as possible. That's pretty much the line.
So it's almost like a preventative medicine, let's say, because we don't know how it will really affect people with various types of diabetes, and how difficult it will be for them to recover from the virus. But what is it like for you as someone that's working in the NHS right now? How are you coping?
So I think individually, I think there are 2 or 3 layers to it. Obviously, it's the work I do in my own hospital. So there's planning about how do we cover the wards. That's very much a heavy pace, war footing, so to speak. I try and avoid using any battle analogies, but it's been great to see colleagues from all spheres coming up and saying, yes, we're willing to help. So there's that bit. There is a lot of the specialist bits where I'm taking a lot of emails and phone calls, and I'm very active on social media, so I get plenty from there. And finally, there's a national role where people are looking for a bit of guidance as we go along. So those are the 3 things which we're trying to sort of balance out as we go. It's busy, but it's part of the job, and these are extraordinary times, and I'm sure we'll enjoy our life after that.